So, good afternoon to all of you. Good evening in Finland, in Poland, and whatever the timing, whatever the place you may be. So, I'm very happy to be with all of you today. And we are continuing with our series of lectures on Raga-vartma-candrika. And today we have our second meeting. Today we will be studying verses number 3 and number 4 from this first illumination on this moon ray that is trying to shed light on the path of sacred, passionate love, spontaneous devotion. But as usual, first of all, let's make some summary, some review of what we saw last Monday on our first class. For the ones that are maybe connecting for the first times to my lectures, you will realize that that's part of my mood. I will try to make some review and summary of what we saw the previous lecture, especially if the lectures are twice a week and not every single day. So we need somehow or other to invoke the terms back, if you will, to our attention. So in our previous lecture, we shared some introduction about the whole work, about the whole book, some invocation also. We shared the first 2 verses of this first part of the book. We also gave some introduction to Vishwanath Chakrabarty's life and work, basically. His literary contribution being especially highlighted and in connection very especially to Srila Rupa Goswami. We mentioned these famous 3 commentaries he made on Srila Rupa Goswami's work. Wait 1 second. Okay, one detail regarding the recording here. So after that, we make some little brief introduction to the work in itself, Raga-vartma-candrika, being an extension, as the author will say himself, an extension of his extension of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, an extension of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, in this case, of Vishwanath Chakrabarty. It contains 21 verses, quote-unquote verses, because some of them are verses, some of them will be in prose. Till now, we will be seeing the very first verses, and eventually the presentation will get more longer or expanded, if you will. And the book will be divided into 2, illuminations, if you will, following with the analogy of the Chandrika and the moonbeams. So it will be 2 parts. The first illumination will deal with the topic of Raga and Vaidhi, like clearly delineating and describing, defining what's Raga Bhakti, what's Vaidhi Bhakti, which are their unique attributes and so on. And the second part, somehow or other connected to this, will be speaking about Aishwarya and Madhurya. These 2 aspects in Bhagavan, in one's connection with Bhagavan. Vaidhi, we can connect Vaidhi and Rag with Aishwarya and Madhurya respectively. But also interestingly, Vishwanath will share some nice ideas connected to how Aishwarya is actually present in Madhurya for it to be Madhurya. If we want to speak about sweetness and intimacy in divine love, it's necessary that the foundation of majesty is there in the background of the whole thing. But we will see that eventually. Also, we share a little bit some words about the meaning of the work itself. And here I would like to make some correction that I received in an anonymous way. I mean, the correction was not anonymous, but the author asked me to mention the name, a senior good brother of mine. So he pointed that actually Raga-vartma-candrika, I described the word Vartma, as like pointing to. And I explained Raga-vartma-candrika and the moonbeams that point into the direction of the path of Rag. But actually the word Vartma means path in itself. So I made a mistake. I want to make it clear so you're not misled by my speculation. So Raga-vartma-candrika. Candrika will refer to the moonlight, and Vartma means path, and Raga means Rag. So Raga-vartma-candrika will mean the moonlight, which basically illuminates, being moonlight, the path of Rag. And also very generously, this dear God brother shared the extended idea, no? That if we are speaking in terms of, in this case, of a Chandrika, naturally the book will be divided accordingly to that particular symbolic description or analogy that is being there. No? In this case, Kiranas is a word which means like beams. No? And as we see, for example, in Rupa Goswami's Bhaktarasamrita Sindhu, the book is presented in the context of an ocean, which is, of course, not a mere analogy, because Bhakti Rasa and Bhakti Rasa Amrita is in itself an ocean, but a particular type of ocean. So naturally, an ocean will have waves. So Rupa Goswami describes the chapters of the work in waves, called also Laharis. Also, the possibility if the book is called a creeper, a vine of whatever, of love, the chapters will be accordingly described as flowers. So in this way, in a poetic and symbolic description, will continue. So in this way, and I continue with the comment that I received from this good brother of mine, that this idea of Raga-vartma-candrika will represent, in this case, following this idea, like the book that offers light or insight into the truth about Rag, if you will, but in a moon-like way, if you will, in a soothing way, in a gentle, user-friendly, even, if you will, way, because actually that's the whole idea of these booklets or how do you say in English, like the handbook or something about Raga Bhakti. No? Like Vishwanath wrote this as an extension of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, trying to make this easier to comprehend for us. So sometimes the comparison is moonlight and sunlight. Sunlight can be a little bit strong, but moonlight will be cooling and soothing. So in this way, the analogy goes on. So I want to make that clarification. So excuse me, I beg your pardon for my mistake. And eventually also continue with our review of the previous lecture. We saw, as I said, we studied the very first two verses. So the first one was the Mangala Charan of the whole work. And there Sri Vishwanath was mentioning that with great humility and veneration, I offer obeisances again and again to those devotees who, like chakora birds, are always relishing the nectarine rasa of Rupa Goswami's words. And on the strength of just a slight merciful glance for them, I'm beginning this book, which is like a moonbeam illuminating the path of spontaneous devotion. So this is a Mangala Charan. As you know, this is the special function that is there before starting whatever activity that you hope it to be auspicious. So in this case, Vishwanath focused his prayer into the Rupa Nuga direction, if you will, into the direction of those who follow the footsteps of Sri Rupa. So we explained briefly this term Rupa Nuga in two ways. And also in this connection, of course, we mentioned how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur himself has been considered by some in a representational sense as an incarnation of Rupa Goswami, regarding how much in line he was in representing Rupa Goswami's conception, conclusions, rasa-laden purports, and so on. So also this dear good brother of mine added this idea about Rupa Goswami. Also has one book that is a Chandrika book, if you will, called the Natak Chandrika. No? So in this way, we continue even more. No? Rupa Goswami has a Natak Chandrika book. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, being a representational incarnation of Sri Rupa, has his own Chandrika book, his own moonbeam, if you will, following to that other moonbeam. So we shared some words about the significance of Rupa Goswami, how he knew the mind of Gaur, of Mahaprabhu. He established originally the whole idea of this Raga Marga in the context of Bhakti Rasa, which is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and other works. And this particular work, interestingly, is based again on the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami. Like he wrote the Madhurya Kadambini based also on the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu's two verses about Bhakti stages. Here also he continued with the analogy of the Chandrika, speaking about the Chakora bird. Chakora bird is the one who survives only on moonbeams. So these followers of Sri Rupa are only drinking from that soothing nectar light, which is coming from Rupa's conclusions as well, and so on. So some words, I'm trying to make a summary. The second verse we saw in our previous class, stated the purpose of the book, basically. So the verse said that the previously published Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, the drop in the ocean of immortal nectarian mallows of bhakti, gave a concise description of Raganuga Bhakti, and now in this Raga-vartma-candrika, Vishwanath says, I will elaborate on this. So this book is an elaboration on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. So we mentioned some of the topics present in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, and how here Vishwanath is trying to even get into a more detailed focus on certain specific points, because the book is still a booklet, similarly to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. So, and this verse also includes the word raga. He's speaking about Raganuga Bhakti. So we gave some basic definition of these terms, rag. And in order to speak about Raganuga Bhakti, we have to speak about rag, we have to speak about ragatmika. So we try to explain properly these terms in connection to Raganuga being the type of devotion that is following the wake of the sacred greed originally exhibited by the Ragatmikas, who are those eternal associates who are constituted in themselves of rag. Their whole being is tip to toe rag. So Raganuga is the type of practice which follows in the wake of them, prompted by sacred greed. We'll go more in detail in that regard. So raga, as we mentioned very briefly, is connected to the idea of lava or laulyam, sacred greed. So Raganuga, which means implied following the Ragatmika. We cannot become Ragatmikas. That's a point we try to establish clearly as well. Ragatmikas are the ones constituted from that originally. We are Raganugas, and we can become perfected Siddha devotees, but in the context of sadhana Siddha Bhakti. But Ragatmikas are the role model, if you will, to follow. And we finally described a little bit briefly in detail the two divisions of Ragatmika Bhakti, and thus the two divisions of Raganuga Bhakti. Two divisions, Sambandhatmika Bhakti or Sambandha Rupa Bhakti, and Kamatmika Bhakti or Kama Rupa Bhakti, respectively pertaining to Dasi Sakya Vatsalya and Madhurya, respectively. And from here we went to the two specific divisions of Raganuga Bhakti called Sambandhanuga and Kamanuga, respectively. So some brief idea, some brief summary of what we saw our last meeting. So today we will start with verse number 3 of this first illumination, the first section of Raga-vartma-candrika. And this third verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti will describe two kinds of devotion. Already we are speaking about that, but he will continue delving into detail on all these things. So some of the topics, we will speak them more than once in order to properly digest and process and establish them in our conception and in our hearts, hopefully. So let's go to verse number 3, which one I will speak about two kinds of devotion. So I will share the verse with you in Sanskrit. It says like this. Vaidhi bhaktir bhavet shastram bhakto chityat pravartakam raganuga shachit bhakto lobhaiva pravartakam. So let's go to the translation. It says, when bhakti is caused by scriptural injunctions, it is called Vaidhi bhakti. But when its cause is spiritual greed alone, it's called Raganuga bhakti. So we already spoke about this in a certain way, in a nutshell, if you will. Now we will try to unfold, to unpack a little bit the implied meaning, the implications of these brief, unlimited lines. So again, we have already given in our previous lecture also the definition that Rupa Goswami is giving of Uttam Bhakti. Then he spoke about 3 stages in Uttam Bhakti: sadhana, bhava, and prem. And after that, starting from sadhana, we have these 2 divisions of sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi, and Raganuga Bhakti, and so on. So here the author is given the 2 characteristics, the 2 attributes of these 2 types of bhakti, Vaidhi Bhakti and Raga Bhakti. So in the case of Vaidhi, sometimes called Vidhi Bhakti or Vaidhi Bhakti, that will refer to the moment when our practice the input for engaging in bhakti will be mainly like carried, because due to the statements or orders even that we receive from scripture. There are plenty of them. So our bhakti will depend on scriptural statements, basically. And there will be a special focus, because we will see also that Raga Bhakti is sustained on Shastra as well. It's not that it's ashastric, it's against Shastra, but the point is that in Vaidhi Bhakti, a particular focus will be in connection to certain type of fear of transgressing, if you will, those codes, scriptural codes. Now, if we do not follow that, what will happen to me? So I will do it, I must do it, because, again, of the consequences of not doing that. So, for example, there are many examples in scripture that this Shastra described. For example, if you are a verse, negative towards worshiping God, Bahirmukha, they say in Sanskrit, you will have to suffer in different ways. That's clear in the scripture. Many times you have so many verses about what will happen to you if you do not surrender to Krishna. They say in a positive, direct way, in a negative way, indirectly, given the input about what will happen if you do it, what will happen if you don't do it. So there are many Shastra Pramana evidence from scripture speaking about the different ways you will suffer in samsara, different forms you will take birth if you do not accept the shelter of God. So the point is, if you start your bhajan out of fear of such possible suffering, potential suffering, that will fall into the category of Vaidhi. So there are many verses. Let me show you one from the Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, first chapter, 5th verse. This verse will say, Tashmat Bharat Sarvatma Bhagavam Ishvaro Hari Shrutavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Chittatavayam. It's a well-known one. So this speaks about this very same idea. And all king who descend from Bharat, if someone wants to get free from all misery, that person must hear, sing about, or glorify and remember Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is the super soul, the controller, and the one who saves one from all possible misery. This is a famous verse that Sukadev is replying back to Pariksit Maharaj regarding his famous question, and the main focus on Bhagavatam, Shravan, Kirtan, and so on. But again, the particular, of course, the context here, as you know, is Pariksit Maharaj about to die, 7 days remaining. So he's speaking about, if you want to get free from all suffering or from death, basically in this particular case, you should do that. You should do bhakti. So this is a clear example of Vaidhi Bhakti in this particular verse. Because the main impetus for engaging in bhakti is not a natural attraction towards Krishna, towards Vrindavan, towards the Brajavasis mode, and that's why I tread in the path. But the main impetus for engaging in bhakti is my desire of not having fear from death. I don't want to fear death. What to do? You can do this. Okay. So in other words, the scripture, what the scripture are telling to us is, if someone wishes to lose this fear, which is basically the main fear for every person in this world, they are fearful of death. So if you want, and that's logical, I mean, most people is fearful of that. Okay, so let's present a solution to that. Especially in the moment of death, which of course can be at any moment, but what to speak if you have a curse that you have only 7 days, that becomes much more specific and concentrated. So if you have fear of that in that particular moment, the best thing you can do is sing and hear about Krishna, remember him, and so on. But my point is, that will be Vaidhi Bhakti. Because if someone has spontaneous attraction, that person will have the inclination towards Shravan, Kirtan, Smaran, without the necessity of someone informing him or her about the benefits of doing that. Oh, if you do that, that will be good because you will lose fear of death. That person won't care. because that person will be driven by another impetus, another force. That will be rag. So gradually we are trying to make it clear which is the difference between the two, which, as we will say, doesn't have to do with what you do externally, but which is your internal approach to the engagement, devotional engagement. So let's go to a little bit also to the official definitions that Rupa Goswami gives of these concepts in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Given that Raga-vartma-candrika is a commentary on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, if you will, somehow or other, some extended reflection on that, we will be coming and going also to this seminal original work. So Rupa Goswami defines Vaidhi Bhakti. He says, Yatra raga nabhaptatva pravritirupajayate sasane naiva shastrasya sabhaidhi bhakti ruchyate. Basically, it means what we have said now. That devotion which knows no attachment or greed, interestingly, he's speaking first about that, but which is prompted by order from Shastra, that's called Vaidhi Bhakti. So first thing it's saying, it's not Vaidhi Bhakti has to do with following scriptural statement, but it knows no attachment, it has no greed. So indirectly speaking about raga, somehow or other. So that's very interesting because the description here is speaking of following the scriptures without attachment or greed. That's Vaidhi. You follow scriptures in a very loyal way, chaste way, but without attachment or greed. Some other motivating factor is there. But by doing so, by defining Vaidhi Bhakti in this way, Rupa Goswami is implying that we could have attachment and follow the Shastra at the same time. That's a point indirectly made in this verse. I mean, here he's saying, you have no attachment and you follow Shastra. So indirectly he's saying, but you can follow Shastra by having attachment. And of course, that has to do with Raga Marg. And the point is, as we will see, Raga Marg in one sense does not care for scriptural injunctions, but it doesn't mean it's not based on revelation. So Raga Marga doesn't mean to reject scripture altogether. It's not an anarchic type of bhakti. I don't care about anything, especially in the beginnings of Raga Marga. We will also speak about that. What's Raga Marga proper? What's rudimentary Raga Marga, and so on? And what's the role in scripture in all those stages? So the point is, here indirectly made expertly by Rupa, is Raga Marga doesn't mean to reject scripture altogether. We will go back to this point later. So, for example, an example of this will be bhakti, which is prompted by greed, separately to this idea of Vaidhi, after hearing about Krishna. That's an example of this. You hear from Shastra about Krishna. Of course, you can hear from different Shastras about different Krishnas, but when we speak about Raga Marg, being founded on Shastra means to hear especially the Bhagavad. That's the commentary that our Goswamis have made, especially the Bhagavad, and even they comment even further, especially 10th canto. And I may add, especially the Brajalila section, because 10th canto is all about Brajalila, directly or indirectly, but we know that the main emphasis is on the Brajalila section, with its three particular centers around Vatsalya Bhav, Sakhya Bhav, Madhurya Bhav, and of course in our particular Gaudiya Sampradaya, main focus is there Madhurya Bhav, and also a type of Sakhya Bhav on some level as well, Priyanarma Sakhya. So, but well, the point is that when our practice is mainly inspired, if you will, maybe there's not that much spontaneous, passionate inspiration there, but when our practice is mainly inspired by the orders of scriptures, then it's called Vaidhi Bhakti. Of course, at this time you may be wondering, well, I feel I have something of that in my practice, but maybe I belong to the Raga Marga Sampradaya, but I'm engaging in Vaidhi Bhakti. So we'll eventually try to make that clear, and what's the role in Vaidhi, some Vaidhi in the context of Raga, and so on. So bear with me today, or maybe next class, but we are trying to expand on these ideas. So when we speak on Bhakti, let's share some extra ideas on the idea of Vaidhi Bhakti. Rules and regulations. So rules and regulations are the ones that they are impelling, if you will, like prompting the Vaidhi Bhakti to act, motivating factor. But at the same time, we find many rules and regulations in the scripture. not one pointed in one single direction. So, and even many of those rules appear to be contradictory. Rupa Goswami mentions in his Raga-vartma-candrika, in that case, when you find two statements in the Shruti or Smriti that seems to be contradictory, or even from the mouth of the Charja, you kind of do cherry picking and just remain with the one that likes you the most and makes you remain more in the comfort zone. But you have to learn how to do Shastra Sangati, or harmonizing the different so-called contradictory statements. There is actually no contradiction ultimately. Vedanta is saying this very same thing. Tattu samambayat. Shastra yonitvat tattu samambayat. Shastra is the womb which gives birth to divine knowledge, but just tattu samambayat. Many things have been said in Shastra, and you need to understand properly everything in context. Because as we say, always the text without context has the potential to become a pretext. So that's not the idea, using Shastra as a pretext. So the point is, so many statements in Shastra. So what's the real essential statement in Shastra that Vaidhi Bhakta has to follow? So generally, a famous verse from the Purana is quoted, Smarta vyasatatam Vishnur, Vishmarta vyona jatuchit, and so on. Which means you should always remember Vishnu, Smarta satatam Vishnu, Vishmarta vyona jatuchit. You should never forget him. This is the substance of all rules and regulations present in Shastra. So in this quote, there are two considerations, no? Vidhi and Nisheda. No? Vidhi means rules or orders, what to do, and Nisheda means prohibitions or regulations, which will imply what not to do, what to avoid. So the essence of all Vedic rule is, or Vidhi, is always remember Vishnu or Krishna. And the essence of all Vedic prohibition or regulation is never forget him. It's the same thing, but say it anbayabhyatirekabhyam, no, directly and indirectly, from one side and from the other. We need generally both approaches to have the idea clear. But again, here the motivating factor, the main point that I'm trying to go is that the motivating factor is a difference. What makes a difference between Vaidhi and Rag? Because later we will see how even the practices themselves, the 64 angas of bhakti that Rupa Goswami describes, actually are almost the same for Vaidhi Bhaktas and Raganuga Bhaktas. Both of them can engage in all those practices with some few exceptions. So the point is, externally they are doing the same, Shravan, Kirtan, worshipping, whatever, Tulasi, accepting a guru and so on. But the inner approach to them, the orientation to them is what makes a whole difference. What makes one thing Vaidhi and the other Rag. So it's a subtle internal thing, internal consideration. So that's why we are spending some time trying to make that clear. And of course, when we speak about Vaidhi Bhakti, and you know this is not our school, if you will, and as you may feel, it's not that, subjectively speaking, from a Gaudiya perspective, that's not so charming. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't respect Vaidhi Bhakti. No? It doesn't mean that we should consider Vaidhi Bhakti in a derogatory way or minimize its importance. Because Vaidhi Bhakti is a particular path that if you only take Vaidhi Bhakti, it can take you all along to Vaikuntha. It can take you all along to the Parabhyam, to eternity. So my point is, be careful to criticize a Vaidhi Bhakta because he may be in Vaikuntha and you are still here. No? So we have to follow the great example of Gopakumar, that he had gone through so many places and abodes, and he witnessed so many levels of bhakti, but he was always fully appreciative of that, even though he didn't relate fully to all of them except for Golok. But actually he was able to draw something from all of them and to solve them in such a way that reminded him about his own Ishtadev. Like the famous example, I don't know, when he met Hanuman, as you know, and Gopakumar said to Hanuman, please glorify your Lord. He didn't say, speak about Krishna, Madan Gopal and Vrindavan and Sakya Rasa, inspire me. He said, inspire me by speaking about your own Prabhu. So Hanuman started to glorify Ramachandra. And at the end, Gopakumar heard all that in the context of his own pursuit. So he ended saying, Jai Madan Gopal. He was being nurtured in his own bhakti by such a point. Of course, some maturity is required for that exchange. And similarly the same. After that, Hanuman said, please, Gopakumar, now sing the glories of your Prabhu. So Gopakumar starts to speak about Madan Gopal in Braj, fully embedded in Sakya. Hanuman ended say Jai Sri Ram. So there's proper Siddhanta, proper conceptual orientation, both of them understood. We are speaking about the very same person from our particular subjective bias, transcendental bias. So that's worthy of celebration. That's not to be cancelled, if you will. So Bhakti Bhakti is glorious in its own form. It's a loving, affectionate exchange between devotees and Krishna. Well, not Krishna in this case, mainly. We will speak about Narayan and Vishnu and Vaikuntha. So Bhakti Bhakti has to do with that. There is love, there is affection. When we say awe and reverence, please do not feel that the devotees are just running from Narayan when he appears because he's so fearful and everything is in full distance. Reading Brihad Bhagavatamrita gives a very nice glimpse of loving, the type of love that is present there. And this type of affection takes the devotee to become situated under the order of Guru and Shastra in a particular way. And so in that context, we can appreciate this Vaidhi Bhakti also as a division of pure devotional service as well. I always remember Guru Maharaj's example when he visited in South India with Narasimha Maharaj, some Sri Vaishnav. So they were speaking and they asked, this householder asked the sannyasis to narrate Krishna Lila. So he was quite amused and jolly in the midst of the sweetness of Braja Lila, basically. So at one point, Narasimha Maharaj asked him, okay, Prabhu, I have one question. When we speak about Krishna, you become so charmed. And he said, yes, of course, that's the nature of Krishna and Vrindavan and so on. But when I say Narayan, when we speak about Narayan, and he immediately was activated in his own spiritual affinity, and he entered into the mood of Vaikuntha. Say, oh, that's another thing. That's very different. Om Namo Narayana. So Guru Maharaj will say, oh, when I saw that, I felt, oh, I'm just being witness. I'm standing right to an inhabitant, a man of Vaikuntha. And he was charmed by that. Not to the point of wanting to join the Tri Sampradaya, but to the point of appreciating that as something desirable for many. So we have these Vaidhi Marg Sampradayas, but their goal is different. The goal is Vaikuntha and service to Narayan and Vishnu, mainly in these different types of love, but and with full awareness, full Aishvarya, full awareness of Krishna's godhood, basically. And thus, he's to be served. I mean, he's to be loved because he's God. If you ask someone in Vaikuntha, why do you love Narayan? He said, he's God. If you go to Vrindavan, you ask, why do you love Krishna? I don't think the answer will be the same, but exactly something else. Now we will see how all this plays out in the dynamics of the Lila. But continuing a little bit more with Vaidhi and Vaikuntha, which is the objective of Vaidhi mainly, there we have these four main types of mukti: Sarupya Mukti, Salokya Mukti, Sarshti, and Samipya Mukti. Sayuja Mukti is not accepted, of course, by any Vaishnava, but these other four types of devotional mukti are even rejected by Raga Bhaktas, basically. To have the desire for any of those types of mukti for them it's an interruption in the flow of spontaneity towards their deity, if you will. We find some statement like this in the Bhagavad. Matsevaya pratitam te salokyadi chatustaya nichanti sevaya purna kutanyat kalaviplutam. This is also mentioned by Narayan. Narayan even, imagine, not Krishna Vrindavan. But he was given a glimpse to Durvasa Muni here in the section with Ambarish Maharaj. My devotees, they are always satisfied to engage in my service. They are not interested even in the four principles of liberation, in Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, and Sarshti. Although that's automatically achieved by their service to me. So what is to be said of other types of lower perishable happiness, like elevation to Swarga and so on? So I'm saying all this because I think, as I mentioned in the first class, it's important for us to understand how our particular school of thought, our particular sampradaya, which is a school of thought, a particular thought, our sampradaya is a Raga-vartma-candrika sampradaya. We go in that direction, not a Vaidhi-marg sampradaya. Vaidhi-marg sampradaya is sampradaya which officially delivers this Vaidhi Bhakti, corresponds with a total different orientation, total different goal, total different approach to the practice in itself, and totally different. Totally. Of course, we're speaking about the same person ultimately, the same Godhead, but there's big difference at the same time. Different goal. So we as Raga Bhaktas, or maybe we as Raga Bhaktas, because again, we may say, okay, that's the point, that's the original postulate. But what happens if we as Raga Bhaktas, still we are predominated by a certain degree of Vaidhi? That can happen. So again, we are just starting to speak about that today. We'll continue on the next class. But for example, I remember once Srila Prabhupada mentioned that he was speaking to some of his devotees who were worshipping the deities in the very beginning of his movement, worshipping Radha Krishna deities, but their orientation was not yet fully a Raga mark orientation. They were not fully informed about this sacred, passionate love, if you will. So he said to some of them, actually, in this stage, your worship of Radha and Krishna is on the level of Lakshmi Narayan. Of course, it's not black and white. This is proportionate. No? As you are being orientated, no? Like prompted by rules, regulations, and the fear of failing in the. Actually, you are not worshiping Radha and Krishna in the sense you are not immersed in the mood that requires Radha and Krishna to be worshipped. No? We will continue speaking about this. I'm just giving some glimpses of these ideas. So, and this is stated, now for us as Raga Bhaktas, we have this specific, again, divine bias, and our own God, if you will, has this bias. No? For us, Krishna, he has a personal affinity towards Raga Bhakti, to Braja Bhakti. No? This is a famous statement as revealed in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishna Das. When Krishna himself is speaking through the pen of Krishna Das Kaviraj, he's saying everywhere, no? When he's explaining why he's coming as Mahaprabhu, basically. So everywhere in the world is worshipping me according to Vidhi, scriptural injunctions, but simply by following such principles, one cannot attain the feelings, the loving sentiments of the Brajavasis. You are not able to enter there, as we spoke. No? So knowing my Aishwarya, the whole world is looking upon me with awe and reverence. Everyone is worshiping me, God, God, God. But there Krishna is confessing himself. But that devotion, which is made feeble, if you will, or weak by such reverence, does not attract me. Try to imagine. Because again, there is some filter in between. It's not yet me and them. There's some designation in between. In my case, the designation is God. God is a designation, if you will. It's an upadhi in the case of God, of Krishna. That's why we as Raga Bhaktas, we can say Krishna is not God, but as Guru Maharaj will say, Krishna is God when God wants to be himself. Swayam Bhagavan. The word Swayam means himself. God, the God designation was left behind in Vaikuntha, somewhere else. But in Vrindavan, Krishna is not God any longer, if you will, in the context of Bhav. He's fully informal, if you will. He's one more of the Brajavas and so on. You know how this works. So this is the difference. So this is the difference. And so the implications here, Krishna is saying, some people is worshiping me, worship the deity, no, in awe and reverence, he's God, I'm here, the altar is there. So are saying to the deity, now eat, no, claim Krishnaya Namaha, you know, go here, now go to sleep. No, I'm closing the altar, opening Utishta, and I stay here. There's some distance, that's the point again. Not Shrim, Klim, Aim, no. And they're circumambulating me in Archan for Braja Krishna, this is weird, if you will, no? When it's directed to him. for Krishna in Braj, I mean, Krishna's language in Braj is the language of love. Guru Maharaj will say, Krishna in Braj is God overwhelmed by the Brajavasis affection. So for Krishna in Braj, I mean, they are saying cream, stream. What are you talking about? He thinking it doesn't make sense to me. Now, what does it make sense to Krishna? Well, when my mother is telling to me, have you eaten there? Or have you had lunch? You seem so skinny. Eat more, eat more. That makes sense to me, says Krishna. That's my psychology there, the common sense of affection. Or when my mother is chastising me, or when my friends are throwing me to the ground by wrestling, or Baladev is reporting my mischief to Yashoda, or Radha is not allowing me to enter into her kunj. All those things make sense to me. That's the psychology of Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita also. Bhagavan, Sri Krishna is speaking. Well, not Bhagavan at this. He's Bhagavan, but he's not aware of that, if you will. He's saying, Priya Yadi Manna Kori Karaya Bhartsana, Beda Stuti Haiti Hare, say more man. So there Krishna is saying, when my beloved, Sri Radha, is angry with me and chastises me, he says, that takes my mind away from the reverential hymns of the Vedas, where the Vedas are offering Sahasra Sirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat. No, all that remains far away, far away. The famous quote of Srutivir Bimrigyam and Jiva Goswami quote this verse. The sounds of the Vedas are far away from Harikatha, Harikatamritam. So the point is, we are Raga Bhaktas. At least that's our project. That's the association we have received. That's the prospect we have received. So we should learn about Raga Bhakti, because that's our tradition. And according to our tradition, that's the ultimate subjective affinity of Krishna. That's what he likes the most. And we are here to give him what he likes the most. It's the type of bhakti that he has much more taste for. So in this way, we will see how in the beginning there may be some form of Vaidhi Bhakti in the context of Rag, but that will be justly, if you will, like a preliminary function that is making us prepared more and more to fully dive into Rag Bhakti proper. Srila Prabhupada also, there's one nice quote that I found the other day from Srila Prabhupada, and he's speaking about this. He says, Vaidhi Bhakti, that's a learning stage. Real bhakti, he says, para bhakti, supreme bhakti, that's raga nuga bhakti. And we have to arrive to this raga nuga bhakti after we transcend Vaidhi Bhakti. He has started to present a particular conception here. Like apparently Vaidhi Bhakti coming first, Raga Bhakti coming after that. We will speak more in detail about this idea, because sometimes the devotee has this idea. I fully engage in Vaidhi Bhakti and eventually I'm in Raga Bhakti at some point. But actually Raga Bhakti is there from day one. But it will take a particular form, which will be more Vaidhi Bhakti-like, but still being an immature preliminary form of Raga Bhakti. We'll speak more about that eventually. So Srila Prabhupada continues saying, in this material world, if we are not trying to make further and further progress in Bhakti, if we only get attached to this process of Shastric regulation and we do not try to go beyond that, that's not real honey, Prabhupada was saying. You have to open the bottle of honey and lick the honey, real honey, actually. So then you will have the real taste. And he concludes saying that means advancement in spiritual knowledge. So that's the whole point. Do not just remain licking the jar, the bottle, the glass bottle, and thinking, this is the honey. But you have to do this and dive deep into reality. So this is the rag, rag. What's this rag about? Well, by continually performing bhajan, it is described that our mind eventually will become attached and accustomed to Krishna, to our beloved deity, but from a particular angle, again, not God, but in Braja Bhakti mode, which is that Braja Bhakti mode. You will get accustomed to your deity as a conditioned soul is accustomed, attached to his wife and children. Sometimes that's described. Krishna will become a family member. one of us will become part of the village. No? That will be the mood. Again, not in a mundane, ordinary sense. First, we need so much Sambandha Gyan, and to really understand Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order for someday to forget that and see him in other terms. But eventually, Raga will progress in that direction. The same way you are getting attached to your ordinary designations and relationships, you will direct that tendency in an extraordinary way toward your deity. So we want that. We want what we may call satsanga bhajan, which means bhajan with attachment. And anasanga bhajan means the opposite: worship without attachment to Krishna, worship, regulated worship, distanced worship. That won't be enough for us as Raga Bhaktas. But again, Vaidhi Bhakti is something glorious, and those people who find their place in Vaikuntha or in that Sampradaya, and they are really doing that properly, we are to appreciate and glorify that. So I wanted to give some words about Vaidhi Bhakti. So apart from this Vaidhi mark, on the other side, remember, we are going with the description of these two types of devotion. So on the other side, we have the devotion that is prompted by greed. And which is how this greed comes. Well, basically, scripture appears here again, by hearing about Krishna Lila. Specific type of hearing from a particular type of source, and a specific type of Lila, and of course, a specific type of Krishna. As someone say to Sri Adhyatar Maharaj, have you seen Krishna? And he said, the Krishna that I want to see is not easy to see. It's not cheap. I want to see a particular Krishna. There are many Krishnas. So here we're speaking of particular Krishna. So that the greed that will be caused by hearing about the pastimes of Krishna and by hearing about the modes of the worship of the bhajan, of the loving, passionate attachment of the Ragatmika, Parishas, eternal associate composed of Rag. This is called Raga-nuga Marg, the path of that devotion which follows in the wake of the Rag of the Ragatmikas. So let's share Rupa Goswami's description of Raga-nuga Bhakti. We already shared his description of Vaidhi Bhakti in the context of this verse. Let's go to his description of Raga-nuga. He says, Virajantim vibhyaktam brajabasi janadishu ragatmikam anusrita yasa Raga-nuga uchate. So basically the idea is that devotion which is clearly present in the eternal associates of Braj, it's called Ragatmika Bhakti. We are also making some review of previous terms. And the devotion which follows in the wake of this Ragatmika Bhakti is called Raga-nuga Bhakti. In order to speak about Raga-nuga Bhakti, you have to speak about Ragatmika Bhakti. You cannot have one without the other. Because one is anuga, it's in anugatya, it's in the wake of, following the footsteps of that particular example that is eternally being given from the Golok. So Raga Bhakti, as we already said, is exclusively connected to Braj. Raga Bhakti is not to an end in Vaikuntha, if you will. And if you want to go to Braj, there is no other path apart from Raga Bhakti, because again, it means attach yourself to one of those inhabitants there, and thereby entering into this mode of vicarious, like experiencing something, getting in touch with what they are experiencing, and eventually make that your own experience. Anubhav. Anubhav means experience, and Anubhav means to follow in the mood of someone else, if you will. And eventually that emotion becomes yours in the context of your own individuality. So if you want to enter Braj, you have to follow Raga Bhakti. For example, Putana, you may say, what? But she went to Braj and she didn't practice Raga Bhakti. Of course, first of all, she's a case of Kripa Siddhi, extraordinary mercy, causeless mercy without even engagement in sadhana. But also to say that she went to Golok, but not to Gokul, to the Antar Mandal, to the internal section of Braj there. For that, you require Raga-nuga Bhakti proper to enter into that intimate section that we are actually pointing to. And interestingly, again, in Raga Bhakti, we spoke how Vaidhi Bhakti is prompted by rules and a sense of duty, and Raga Bhakti is prompted by sacred greed. But also interestingly in Raga Bhakti, and in Ragatmika, when I say Raga Bhakti implies Ragatmika Bhakti, and Raga Nuga Bhakti does. So we will find there also a sense of duty, but very played out in a very different way than how you find that in Vaikuntha towards Narayan. You go to Raj, their bhakti is prompted by a sense of duty towards Krishna. But the sense of duty is not because Krishna is God. That's the point. Like in Vaidhi. The sense of duty is because Krishna is my son, my friend, my lover, and so on. But there is a sense of duty. For example, Yashoda and Nanda, they feel my duty is to educate Krishna. My duty is to take care of him, to feed him, to correct him, if that's to chastise him if that's necessary. Not like the famous example after the Govardhan Lila, after such a exhibition of Aishwarya, some Brajavasi asked Nanda Maharaj, maybe your son is God? He did something quite uncommon. And he said, no, he's not God. He, of course, started to dismiss the whole argument. I know God, he's peaceful, he's calm, Narayan, Vishnu, Shanti, Shanti. Krishna is not like that. He's lying, he's crying, he's always dissatisfied with so many desires. He cannot be God. But eventually he said, even if he's God, first of all, he's my son. Imagine, interesting psychology. Even if he's God, first of all, he's my son. God is a secondary designation. Try to enter into that psychology. You go to a place where people even may say, yeah, maybe he's God, but that's secondary, that's superficial. First of all, there's another designation. There's another aham mameti, another sense of self, and another possessiveness on the basis of that sense of self. So Nanda Maharaj will say like that, maybe he's God, but first of all, he's my child. So if I had to educate him and chastise him, not to spoil him, I will do that. He entered here fully. When the suggestion of Aishwarya came, that fully nurtured his madhurya, his intimacy, in the context of Vatsalya, of course. But there's a sense of duty again. My duty as a father is to take care and educate my son, especially if he's an Aukti one as Krishna. Balaram will feel my duty as a Dauji, as an elder brother, is to take care of my younger brother. 8 days, younger, but younger, what to say at the least. And I have to take care that he's not doing too much naughtiness. Subal will feel my duty is that I have to play with Krishna and I have to defeat him in wrestling. That's my duty as a good friend of mine, to give play. So again, there is a sense of duty, but not exactly like in Vaidhi Bhakti. And there is some archana there as well. But again, very different than in Vaidhi Bhakti. In Vaidhi Bhakti, there's archana is so prominent. Worship on the altar and so on. So if you go to the Arctic in Golok, well, sometimes this description has been given. Yashoda and Rohini are the gopis in their respective moods in relation to are offering arti with their eyes. Their eyes are the lamps of love. The fire is the passionate emotions toward Krishna. And prem is that dipa, if you will. Their bhav is the little wick. Or they are garlanding Krishna with their glances and so on. No, their tears are the water offered, ecstatic tears are coming there. or also, if you want to speak, there's Archan, but they are worshipping Vishnu and Narayan also. You when say Vaidhi, they are worshipping Vishnu and Narayan. You go to Raj and they find they're worshipping Narayan. Sriman Narayan is there as a deity altar. Deity in the altar. Narasimhadev is there also, Nanda Baba house. But why is Narasimha there? To protect Krishna. So they're worshipping Vishnu, they're worshipping Narasimha, different forms of Narayan, but their minds, as Gurmaras will say, are somewhere else, Krishna. Or their worship is only directed towards Krishna. Like when Krishna disappeared from Rasa Lila and appeared on the way to the gopis, and he took the form of Narayan, and the gopis saw Narayan. I say, oh Narayan, oh Bhagavan Prabhu, please, you are omniscient, you know everything. Can you tell us, please, where is Krishna? That was the only thing they had to ask. They had to ask him. And Krishna, as Narayan, was like dumbfounded, didn't say anything. So the gopis they say, he's not speaking. He's too shanti, he's too peaceful. Let's continue looking for Krishna. And they continue running. So again, very unique realm. So my point is, even if in certain moments, externally, Raga Bhakti takes a similar form to Vaidhi. There may be archan even in Vrindavan, they are worshipping Vishnu, they have a sense of duty, and so on. And we as sadhakas are engaging in the similar practices than the Vaidhi Bhakta. Even though all these similarities are there, as you can see, Raga Bhakti is in an entirely different abode of practice, with different orientation, with different conception of divinity, with different processes, goal, with different sambandha, videya, and prayojan, basically. In a general abstract way, we may have similar ideas: God, the soul, the world, the energy, Shaktiman, Shakti. But when we start into the specifics of our sampradaya, there's a different orientation to our engagement. And thus, if there is a different sambandha, there will be a different particular videya corresponding to that as a byproduct and a corresponding result of prayojan. So again, maybe we may feel, okay, but I don't feel I have that attachment to Krishna yet. What to speak of being someone made of attachment, being a Raga-vartma-candrika. But anyhow, we have to begin somewhere. So maybe we do not have that great attachment for Krishna in Braj. We are not made of attachment for Krishna. We are not Raga-vartma-candikas. But try to think about this. What must it mean to hear from the lips of those who actually have attachment for Krishna, and they are speaking about those who are constituted of attachment for Krishna? That's a very powerful combination. Even though we do not have attachment and we are not made of attachment, if we just expose ourselves, as Bhaktisiddhanta will say, just give me your ears. So we just lend our ears to hear about those who are made of attachment for Krishna from the lips of those who have attachment for Krishna. That's our hope. That's the moonbeam that is enlightening our path. So in this way, and when we do that, that's a very powerful method. Raga Bhakti is a very consuming. Not to say that spontaneous devotion is the best method to absorb the mind in Krishna, because the best thing that you can do to capture your mind is emotional absorption. When you get emotionally linked with the object of your meditation, that captures your mind wholly, beyond different exercises that you can make to try to focus your mind. So that's the essence of sadhana, as we say, kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhava sadhana havida. The essence of sadhana is to absorb your mind in Krishna. Smarta vyasatatam Vishnu. And it ends in bhav, which means emotion proper. Your mind becomes bhav, basically. So this emotion connected to raga marg is doing this in a much more effective way than the regulated practice that follows the scriptural injunctions. One Guru Maharaj gave this nice example of a yogi trying to focus his mind and meditating in the forest, and a lady just running and trying to meet her lover in the forest. So he was just passionately running, and she just ran off over the yogi without noticing that and continuing looking for her lover. And the yogi was like, this lady's crazy, she did this is an offensive, and blah, blah, blah. He was already meditating in all that. So eventually the lady returns some hours later after her meeting with her lover, and she offers pranam to the sage, and the sage feels like, are you sarcastic to me? You almost killed me and now you're offering pranam? No? And she said, what are you speaking about? Yeah, some hours ago you were running and just ran off on me. And she said, I don't remember that. So the yogi realized she's being honest. She was so consumed by her mentally emotional disposition that she was not aware of whatever was happening around her. So that day, Guru Maharaj said, the yogi learned a very valuable teaching regarding meditation. So this is what Raga Bhakti is about. Of course, not in the connection of the realm of mundane lovers, but the ultimate lover, the ultimate beloved Sri Krishna. So Raga Bhajan has to do with that. Raga Bhajan proper means keeping the mind fixed, unattracted. How my mind keeps attracted? You have to feed your mind with a particular thing. So how this works, in Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami quotes in Bhakti Sandarbha 310, Anucheda 310, Jiva Goswami written something, and he mentions that the natural love and desire of a sense enjoyer, he will make some comparison as we were making now with mundane attachment. So he says the natural, spontaneous desire and love of a sense enjoyment of the Visai for his favorite sense objects, that's called rag. So we know what's rag about on one level. So now we just need to replace its object, its Visaya Lambana. And that will create eventually this Saiva. Just, he says, as the eyes are attracted to beautiful scenes, and the other senses are attracted to their favorite sense objects, and need no encouragement in this, and there isn't spontaneity in that direction. Similarly, when the heart of the devotee is naturally attracted to the Lord, then this anxious thirst of love is called rag. So now he's making the parallel when that happens in connection to Sri Hari. But speaking about the same term, that's why this bhakti is so user-friendly, especially this raga bhakti, because it resembles so much our conditioned experience. So we just need to put Krishna in the center. Of course, it sounds easy. We just need to do that. Chant and be happy. It requires some work. But at the same time, it's very human-like in many senses. So Jiva Goswami concludes saying that when even a semblance of the moon rays of the aforementioned rag, which is situated in the hearts of the Nitya Parishats, Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya, Prakatyam Hridi Sadhyate. When this bhav falls on the crystal-like heart of a devotee who has attained a slight taste for this aforementioned rag, but has not really developed the real raga yet, then the whole heart rejoices, and when he learns about it from the scriptures, he develops a taste for the expert devotional service of these Raga-vartma-candrika devotees. So that's interestingly, Jiva Goswami is describing this idea. No? In the beginning, he gives a very sequential description here. He says, first of all, he speaks about our situation as Nityabada Jivas. We know what does it mean as conditioned souls to have rag, to have thirst, greed for sense object. We know that. Okay, so now let's try to move that into the direction of bhakti. And how we can experience at least a glimpse of that when we have the chance of hearing about Krishna's pastimes of Braj, and we receive some ray of this Swarup Shakti, of this moon ray that is coming. It's interestingly, here Jiva Goswami is speaking about the descent of Swarup Shakti from the Nitya Parishats, from their hearts into our hearts. Of course, in a more concrete way, that will have to do with Bhava and our Bhava Deha and our identity, ecstatic identity. But in another way, we can say, when you hear about the Leelas of Krishna in Braj and about the Nitya Parishats, that hearing and you feel something about that, that means a moon ray of the Nitya Parishats is descending into your heart in the form of hearing, and you feel some slight, as Jiva Goswami says, some slight taste for that. So when you receive that slight taste, that glimpse, but yet still you are not fully situated in rag proper, so you feel something. So after that, he says here, when you learn, so what was that? You will start to inquire, what was that? I felt something by hearing that. So you start to learn about that. From scripture, he said this. So after that, you will go to scripture and you will further nourish your orientation regarding that taste. But first, there was taste. That's the point. First, you had a glimpse of that breed. And eventually, you will get that more informed. And by that proper combining of hearing from certain people about certain sections of scripture, you will develop raga bhakti proper. You will develop a real taste regarding the service of the Raga-vartma-candikas. So this is the idea. No? So we have to understand all those things properly. Of course, we have first of all to have clear the difference between mundane rag, transcendental rag, natural spontaneity towards exploitation in this plane, natural spontaneity towards dedication in the other plane. Well, basically this idea. No? So the purpose, just to finish the explanation of this verse, and I have one more verse still, so bear with me, but it will be shorter, my explanation on the other one, because it's quite similar to this. So the purpose of these words is that when these devotees, those devotees whose hearts are pure and sincere on some level, all of this, again, it's not black and white, but proportionately, when they hear from Shastra, after having this first taste or glimpse, again, Shastra is coming, but Shastra will be approached from a different side than by the orientation. When these devotees hear from Shastra, from the lips of the saints, about the mood of love which come from the Ragatmikas, their taste will awaken more and more and more. And eventually, accordingly, they will follow their moods gradually. Gradually, also it's an important word. Kramena, Rupa Goswami will say in his famous verse of Upadeshamrita, the essence of all advice, Tannama Rupa Charitad. He mentions you should be remembering 24 hours a day Krishna's pastime with his former associate. But he will use the word Kramena there and in many other verses, which means step by step by step, in a gradual sequential process. In this way, Raganuga Bhakti will start and will develop eventually. So some ideas regarding the third verse of this first section. So bear with me some more minutes. I will go to this fourth verse that will be connected to the previous verse. In the third verse, we were speaking about two types of devotion, two types of practices of bhakti. And now we will speak about two types of practitioners of bhakti, two types of adhikaris, if you will, of bhakti. So let me read the verse for a moment and we will make some brief explanation before finishing. It says, Bhakto prabritirattrasya tatchikirsha sunishchaya shastra lova takshir kishur shatam tad adhikarinu. So the translation says like this. Two types of practitioners. To advance in devotional life means to nurture the single-minded desire to engage exclusively in the limbs of bhakti. One can progress in bhakti in two different ways. Again, out of fear of scriptural injunctions or of the results of neglecting scriptural injunctions, and two, with intense sacred grief. Accordingly, there are two types of adhikar for bhakti sadhana, or adhikaris, or practitioners for bhakti sadhana. So again, this is in the line of the previous verse. That's why I chose to present the two of them together, because the following ones will go into similar but another direction. So here in this verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is speaking about bhakti, first of all. And we know bhakti is a very pretty wide universal engagement. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will present it as Jaiva Dharma, or the natural function of the soul. So it's a path for every soul, beyond any designation, different from Gyan, Yoga, there are certain preliminary things there, and so on. So when we may ask, well, if that's so universal, why does not everyone is engaging in bhakti? Of course, the point is, that which causes one to start the practice is basically to have a strong desire to engage in it. Now, why someone engages in bhakti? Because someone wants to engage in bhakti. That's basically qualification to start. But that desire to engage in bhakti, it is said that can arise for two reasons. So here, Vishwanath is pointing these two. Because if this desire is not there, you won't engage in bhakti, and there are many people who are not doing that. So the point is, and he will continue describing this, where this desire is coming. This will be further other verses. So the two, if you will, reasons for this desire to engage in bhakti that come from, first of all, is out of fear of scriptural injunctions and the possible, again, consequences of failing in doing so, which means vaidhi. And the second one is rag. When one hears from Shastra about the loving service of the Nitya Parishats, as we already mentioned, and out of sacred greed, a glimpse of that, whatever the quantity, and proportionally to that, one begins to desire to follow in the wake of such bhajan. So in this way, we have two adhikaris. Adhikaris mean like candidates, people with certain eligibility for bhakti, in this case, bhakti adhikaris. So let's go briefly to Rupa Goswami's description before finishing Rupa Goswami's definition of these two candidates for Vaidhi and for Raga Bhakti. So first of all, he defines the adhikari for Vaidhi Bhakti. He says, Ja kinapyati bhagyena jata shradasya sevane nati shakto navairagya bhagasham adhikarishu. So he uses the word here, atibhagyena. He starts to show how this bhakti is actually non-inherent. Atibhagyena means by stroke of inconceivable luck, extremely fortune, the drichaya, so many words. So when by extremely good fortune a person develops some shraddha, some faith, and liking for serving Krishna, due to having associated with great saints and so on, important points again, but that person has not yet attained firm attachment to the Lord, Nati Shakto, and is only slightly averse to bodily attachments, Navaragyam, such a person is eligible for sadhana bhakti, which in this case refers to Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Here we find no mention of greed whatsoever. But basically, you begin by the grace of the sadhus, by extremely good luck. But again, it's saying you have not attained Nati Shakto, firm attachment to Bhagavan, or even a slight greed of that. And later, Rupa Goswami is describing the candidate for Raga-nuga Bhakti. So he says, Raga-vartma-candrika nishtaye brajavasi janadaya tesam bhavat-taye lubdo bhavet atradhikaravam. So he's using in the two verses, he's using the word adhikar, which has to do with knowing till which point you can reach, if you will, adhikar. So it says a person who is greedy, you will just, by hearing the two descriptions, you will understand this speaking of Vaidhi and this speaking of Rag. So here he says a person who is greedy after the unalloyed ecstatic Ragatmika Bhakti that the Brajavasis have for Krishna is eligible for Raga-nuga Bhakti. So it's a totally different reason, basically, different approach. So I think that the difference is quite clear here at this point after almost more of an hour speaking about the topic. But basically, just to conclude, we could say that the difference between the candidates in this particular case, Vishwanath speaking about the candidates, the difference between the candidates for Vaidhi Bhakti and for Raga-nuga Bhakti is that adhikar for Vaidhi Bhakti is caused by Shraddha or faith. This was clear here. And adhikar for Raga-nuga Bhakti is caused by Lobha or Laulyam, which means sacred greed. So in his commentary to this particular verse, Anantadas Babaji, in his particular purport, he says that the Vaidhi Bhakti adhikari, or the candidate for Vaidhi Bhakti, gradually advances in his sadhana by Shraddha, what we mentioned just now. That's the main reason for his being prompted into the practice. Having faith in the scripture and gradually some ruchi will come in that case, will awaken as a result of his reverential attitudes towards the Lord. There's a type of ruchi corresponding with that. And that ruchi will meet with his or her initial shraddha. But everything begins with shraddha, that's the point. But, however, he says, this ruchi remains a secondary factor. And his bhajan continues mainly on the basis of his shraddha. But on the other side, that's a Vaidhi Bhakti orientation, Vaidhi Bhakti adhikari. But the Raga-nuga Bhakti adhikari, or candidate for Raga Bhakti, is prompted by greed from day one, if you will, on some level or another, and eventually more and more, in the wake of following after the moods of the Nitya Siddha Brajavasis. So their practice of sadhana gradually develops and eventually meets with deep shraddha. However, he says, Anantadas Babaji finishes his commentary saying, here shraddha still remains the secondary factor and ruchi or raga the main factor. Of course, there is shraddha, it's a type of shraddha, but the main, the prominent feature in this case will be rag, love, attachment, greed. Greed, this is a very important word. Srila Prabhupada himself, there's a famous verse written by Rupa Goswami, his Padyavali, that Krishna Das Kaviraj, let me quote this and we finish here, I promise you. He quotes this verse in his Chaitanya Charitamrita to speaks about the price to pay if you want to thread the raga mark. He says, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatam Jadi Kutopi Labhyate Tatra Laulam Apya Kalam Mulam Janmakoti Sukrital Lanabhyate. So this verse will say, Guru Maharaj very nicely translates that in his aesthetic Vedanta in poetry. And he says, that heart absorbed in Krishna rasa so rare. Oh friend, if you can find that rasa anywhere, be quick to buy. How much the soul's in need. In that bazaar, there's posted just one price. Millions of pious works will not suffice. The only cost is paid in coins of greed. Tatra laulem api kalamulem. So the only price here, the only currency in this market is greed. So in that way, you can enter into this current of bhakti rasa, your bhavita, you can have your intelligence fully immersed there. And it's interestingly, Srila Prabhupada at one point explained that the inspiration for him to name his movement as Krishna consciousness movement, what he understood that Krishna consciousness was based on this verse, Krishna bhakti rasa bhavidhamati. Bhavidhamati. Your mati, your intelligence becomes full embedded in Krishna bhakti rasa. For him, that was the idea of Krishna consciousness. So every time you say Krishna consciousness, your mind should run to this verse. And that has to do, as you see here, with Raga Bhakti, with the price for Raga Bhakti, but with this particular path that we belong to. So that's, again, a very important point for we to understand. So some words I wanted to share with you today about what's Vaidhi, what's Raga, which are the two types of the bhakti and which are the two types of bhaktas, if you will, of practitioners. And of course, maybe when we hear about these definitions of each of them, as I mentioned before, we have to have something very clear here, that all of this is not just playing out in black and white. No, it's not a just Vaidhi, just Raga, full Raga from the beginning or whatever. No, there are shades of gray in between. So my point is that we ourselves, maybe we will feel, I am not fully fitting completely in one category nor the other. I may know I'm in the Raga Marg Sampradaya, I said before, but I may feel that I'm not fully just prompted by sacred read. So what about Vaidhi? So there's maybe a little bit of each of them. So how do they combine? How do they play out? Is there a chance of combining Vaidhi Bhakti as an assistant to Rag, and in that way gradually increasing my sacred greed? Or if I have some Vaidhi Bhakti, I'm condemned, if you will, quote unquote, to be thrown into Vaikuntha forever or something. So be quiet, there is an answer to all of that and there is a solution, but we won't speak about that today. That will be too much already. So I think next class, on next Monday, we will go in deep into this direction in greater detail about how Vaidhi can have a role in the development of Rag, in a particular form of Raganuga Bhakti, of beginning Raga Bhakti, that in the words of Srila Jiva Goswami is called Ajata Ruchi Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. That beginning stage of Raganuga Bhakti where there is not too much greed nor attraction, but there's something of that, some connection with that. But also we need some connection with certain aspects of Vaidhi, but it's a particular type of Vaidhi, not the Vaidhi that goes to Vaikuntha, but the Vaidhi that goes to Braj, if you will, in the sense of assisting our Raga Bhakti. But I will stop here, and I don't know if you have any questions before finishing today's talk. You can take the microphone.
Maharaj, I have a question.
Yes, Brigupa.
Thank you very much for this class. You can say maybe this is something you're going to answer next time. So in that case, just say so.
Okay.
But I'm thinking about this, or we're thinking with Saragrahi about this, that Vishwanath and Rupa Goswami, they are describing both very clearly Raga Anuga and Vaidhi Bhakti as being two separate paths. Mm-hmm. They start with separate things. They start from Shraddha or Lobha. They end in Vaikuntha or in Vrindavan. So they are two discrete paths. But on the other hand, it's difficult to think that anybody could have Lobha before first having some kind of faith in the scriptures. That these stories are not just stories of made up by some person, but they are something real that I can have attraction for.
Mm-hmm.
in a different way than I would have attraction for, let's say, Game of Thrones. I might like it, but I don't feel like I also want to be a follower of Daenerys
Mm-hmm.
or something like this. So there seems to be some kind of faith, some kind of shraddha in the background of even Raga and Uga.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we also have this, we learn from Rupa Goswami that bhakti starts, sadhana bhakti starts with shraddha, adau shraddha, tatu sadhu sangha, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they are describing these two types of sadhana bhakti as being separate, but it looks also like somehow they are connected with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do
Well,
you agree with this?
yeah, of course. We are on the same page. I will share some brief words, but yeah, I mainly plan to expand next class on this topic. But yeah, I agree with your point because, and I was trying to make a little points here now when I was explaining what Jiva Goswami said in the Bhakti Sandarbha, that he mentioned that in the very beginning one receives some slight trace of let's call lobha, rudimentary seed-like lobha, just by hearing from some sadhu about Krishna Lila without understanding what's going on, maybe even without having a real faith built on the argument of scripture. That will come after, as he himself said. You hear about that, you feel something, that can happen. That's stated in scriptures, also described by Rupa Goswami. You can have some special experience, if you will, without understanding too much. I mean, I think all of that on some level had that experience. And in my case, I remember I was just one day jumping in the kirtan. I was saying that was not in my agenda yesterday. No, so, and I'm feeling something. No, and I understand really what's going on. Eventually, with years, I look back and I put pieces. But in the moment, some glimpse of something, some ray was descending there again. And this particular case, it refers to hearing about Krishna and Krishna's associates. So that I will call that the rudimentary type of lobha that gives a first impact in our life. But again, to speak of that about lobha proper, as you mentioned, it requires certain understanding of what's that, not to be just a sentimental feeling, and that requires education and reading, and that's what Jiva Goswami says. After this first impact of beginning ray, if you will, you will ask the devotees, if you will, what's going on, what happened to me, and they will take you to scriptures. This is what happened. This is Krishna. This is Krishna Lila. This is Raga. So eventually, you start to inform your experience, and that allows for you to build a particular type of faith, but in the context of lobha remaining prominent. So yes, I agree that it's not that just you just begin and you have full lobha, and that will be clear in the next verses. That's why I'm not speaking that much, because Vishwanath Chakravarti will speak about how lobha will come by the grace of devotees, and sometimes that grace is coming in this lifetime or in previous lifetimes. So my point is, in the case you see someone coming to the first time to the class and feeling something very unique, most probably that person already came from previous lifetimes of practice. So, but some brief ideas, I hope that helps, but next class I will continue elaborating on that. Thank you very much. Any other question before finishing? Okay, seems there are no more questions.
I've got a question.
Who is speaking there? Chaitanya Krishna?
Chaitanya Das?
Yes. Jai.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this question comes from your last class. Well, the first one. And I didn't get to the very end, so I don't know if it was covered. But at one point about the first verse, you said that it was important not to be independent, but always connect oneself or something like that.
I don't remember the particular context, but continue with the idea. Yeah.
Well, I guess because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur made the point that he made, I think, offered his obeisances to the practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you said that sometimes people try to engage in Rag Bhakti in an independent manner.
Undescended manner?
No, independent.
Independent. Okay.
As opposed to, I guess, dependent upon others. And I was just curious to hear more about the details of that idea. For instance, what does the mood and practice of an independent approach look like in comparison to the mood and practice of the opposite?
Mm-hmm. Well, to be sincere, I don't fully remember in which context I say that. So I don't know if I was speaking about just being independent-minded. I don't think so. Maybe I was referring to some people wanting to get close to Krishna, let's say in Braj, conceiving having a relationship with Krishna in Braj without serving him through the agency of a group leader, if you will. And that's what Raganuga Bhakti is all about. It's not that I'm projecting myself as Srila Sridhar Maharaj will say, we are not followers with all respect to Mirabai, that she was projecting herself to relate to Krishna in Vrindavan, but all her orientation was, and her songs were about Krishna and me, Krishna and me, Krishna and me. There was no Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Rupa, Manjari, Yashoda, and there are some pradayas as well that have this conception, like Radha Vallabh Sampradaya, which, I mean, it's not that they say nobody else exists there, but the emphasis is not so much there, but it's only Krishna and me, or Radha and Krishna and me. The whole retinue is not contemplated. So that was, I think I was trying to convey when I mentioned that independent approach to Raga Bhakti, like without understanding that this is a descending process, if you will, Avaroha Panta. So again, Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya. So the bhava that we want to achieve will descend from one of the Nitya Siddhas. That's what bhava means. It's coming from our own eternal identity. Well, it's already existent, if you will, in a latent form in the Swarup Shakti. No, that also the dynamic of, I'm going to another point, but it's connected. Swarup Shakti represents eternal being, but as Guru Maharaj will say, eternal becoming, eternal expansion. So the potential for our ultimate identity in Lila lies deep within the Swarup Shakti's unfolding. So eventually, when the proper time comes, and by sadhana, we make our heart ready for the descent of that particular Prema Suryamsu Samyabhag, the son of the ray of Prem, that will come to us from the Nitya Parishats, but through Parampara as well. It's not the game, just Krishna, I'm going there, and I'm jiping over all this hierarchy, if you will, transcendental hierarchy. So I think that was my main point when I spoke about being dependent, like acknowledging the crucial importance and significance of our connection with Guru and this anugatya, this following in the wake of all these personalities that are representing in a hierarchical way, even in eternity, there will be this hierarchy of, again, you have, I don't know, Sri Radha, Lalita, Rupa Manjari, some prominent figures in your parampara leading you, if you are in this case, if you have affinity for Manjari Bhav. It's not that I will just jump over Tulasi Manjari, Lavanga Manjari, Rupa Manjari, Lalita Sakhi, just go to Radha, and that won't work. Now, if you study the descriptions of the Mahajans that were there in the Lila, they will express themselves in showing this proper adherence, in this proper spirit of Anugatya. So some ideas, I think that was my main point there. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay.
Maharaj?
Yes.
Could I ask a question?
Okay, last question. Lunch is waiting for many of us here.
Okay.
You already have your lunch, but we are here waiting for that. Aloha in that direction.
Jai.
No problem.
So yeah, my
Yeah.
question is regarding Hanuman, because sometimes it is said that that Hanuman has some raga to his devotion, or like indicating that direction, something like that. Could you expand more on that?
Where does it say that?
I heard from Guru Maharaj
That Ram has some rag?
like that his example of devotion kind of points towards the raga marg somehow. I,
Well,
I
I would
sorry,
like,
I cannot.
yeah, of course, first I would like to hear what Guru Maharaj said and the
Yeah.
particular context and the emphasis he wants maybe to make in a particular point. But I will say that, yeah, what that he meant with rag, because of course the word rag is not just ours as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. No, rag means many things, means attachment, means taste. It's a way of speaking about ruchi. Now we have just said that if you are in raga marg, mainly you will be oriented or prompted by greed, but lobha, but shraddha will be there. But in Vaidhi marg, you will be prompted by shraddha, but raga will be there in the background, some type of raga. Of course, we are not speaking about the mood of the Brajavasis, but that can be, of course, there will be some type of attachment, some type of taste, because all these stages of bhakti from Shraddha to Prem do not only belong to the Raga Marga Sampradaya, to us as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. I mean, you can be a Vaidhi Sri Vaishnav or a Ram Bhakta and go through all these stages as well. So there's a place for a type of rag, a type of ruchi. And of course, Hanuman is a very unique example of a particular type of dasya bhav towards Ram. And of course, he's a Nitya Parishad and he's there. He has all these stages from Shraddha to Prem. So we are speaking, he has a ruchi, he has an attachment, he has a rag, but it's expressed, takes a form of Hanuman, if you will, which is a servitude. There is some friendship, but there is with Ram at the same time. There is a friendly servitude, no? Basically. These days I was looking some series of the Ramayana. It's an interesting experience to further establish how all this Mariat that Ram Lila is about is present also deep within Krishna Lila, but Krishna Lila showing some sort of trans Mariat or trans morality and so on, but that's another topic. But the point is that, I don't know, Hanuman wants to go to the feet of Ram, and Ram embraces Hanuman, but Hanuman tries to accept embrace, but he's more receiving to the background, but at the same time, he likes to be embraced by Ram. So there is a mixture of course, it's a type of, it's a dasya, and there is a type of sakya on some level. No, in the context of Ram Lila, again, no, I'm not speaking about the sakya of Subal or something, but there is a type of friendship, friendly servitude, as we were speaking. Again, different lilas, different bhavs, but you will have with your guru, Vishram Bena Guru Seva, you will have with Mahaprabhu a type of dasa tinge with sakya. But again, different sakyas and different dasyas. When you speak about the dasya in Vaikuntha is one thing, the dasya in Vrindavan is another thing, the dasya in Ajodhya is another thing. So Hanuman has dasya, and there is some friendship there. So there is some level of intimacy there. And of course, the Ram Bhaktas are following to the wake of his mood. But so basically that, no? So there is some rag. That's my point, and that was your question. There is some rag, some attachment to the service of Ram. I mean, if there is someone who personifies attachment to that service in that mode, no, that figure is Hanuman, no? And to have a taste for that above anything else. So there is rag, but again, it's not the raga mark sampradaya of the Gaudiya sampradaya of our school of thought. But of course, there is some spontaneity in his service attitude and so on. So I hope that helps. But of course, I would like to have the context of the statement to be more full informed. So if you can get the link, that will be good for me as well.
Jai Maharaj, yeah, thank you very much.
No, thank you. So okay, I think we can leave here. We already went like over an hour and a half. So thank you so much to all of you for your time and your patience. And as you know, we are also uploading these talks in one link of podcast. So if you would like to go over again the audios, that will be there today, tomorrow. Thank you very much and see you next week. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Raga-vartma-candrika ki jai, Shri Raga-varti pad ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Haribo, Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Haribo.